reforms in the global financial and development financing systems, which will provide interest relief, sustainability, and take into account equity and priorities of developing countries. The Vice President made the call while addressing the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development being held in Seville, Spain, stressing on the importance of innovative approaches in financing, including shifting financial debts to the implementation of various projects such as environmental conservation.
And therefore we call for innovative approaches, including debt for climate and debt for development swaps. Similarly, sovereign credit rating systems must be changed to improve transparency and fairness. And this conference must also come up with pragmatic solutions to reduce borrowing costs and expand access to concessional and non-debt creating finance to make debt sustainable. Third, trade is a powerful driver of economic growth. However, in order to make trade work for development, we seek greater support in enhancing the productive capacity, meeting global standards, and adding value to our exports. Tanzania advocates for fair multilateral trading rules, simplified rules of origin, and duty-free, quota-free access to least developed countries. Fourth, innovation is central to transformation. And similarly, robust data systems, including disaggregated and real-time data, are required to guide evidence-based policymaking. And cognizant of these facts, Tanzania and other developing countries are investing in digital infrastructure, research, and technological innovation. However, we need partnership with countries from the global north and enhanced South-South cooperation to make further and quicker progress in harnessing science, technology, and data. Fifth, we believe that the international public finance should complement and facilitate national efforts. Long-term investments, including foreign direct investment, are needed in critical sectors, especially in sustainable energy, infrastructure and transport, industrialization, information and communication technologies, as well as diversification of African economies.
Furthermore, the Vice President reveals that by 2024, Tanzania had reached 60% of the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, making remarkable progress in goals number 2 to number 7, especially in the areas of health, food security, education, gender equality, access to clean and safe water, and access to energy. The 4th summit, which adopted the Seville Declaration, aims to review progress made since Addis Ababa to explore the best ways to achieve the sustainable development goals in the context of the new challenges such as climate change, international conflicts, and economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. As Africa and the world expect Rwanda and Democratic Republic of Congo to begin a new chapter of hope, harmony, prosperity, and peace, following the two sides signing a U.S.-brokered peace agreement on Friday, some experts question DRC's substantial mineral riches that have been both a blessing and a curse, and whether the Mineral for Security deal, well known as Declaration of Principles, will bring about lasting peace in DRC. To discuss this critical issue in the region, we are joined live by political analyst Partenas Niyegira. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, and good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me.
To begin our discussion, first and foremost, let's see that how effective is this peace deal between Rwanda and of course, the DRC, which has been brokered by the U.S. How do you see it's going to be effective in its operation? And of course, some of them have been doubting to be a trade deal based on the natural resources or the wealth that DRC has.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think it's paramount, yes, to keep our doubts clear. because there has been a serious discussion before the Doha, together with the United States of America, to broker such a peace. And the Congo issue has been deep-rooted historically, and it has some issues anthropologically. And when you look on those two, for example, cultural together with the anthropological and the historical issues, and what has been brokered, you get some questions. And that's why those who have doubts, talking about the minerals, becomes much vivid that their doubts hold water. Now, when you look, for example, the Nairobi process, which has been done in here in the East African region, the Angola process, together we are formalizing these two nations, and actually not Rwanda, not DRC, but we are trying for DRC to bring peace by itself. It wasn't the question of the two countries. Now, the doubts become more vivid when you speak of the two nations. It is as if Rwanda and the Congo, they are at war. It's like speaking of Russia and Ukraine. So when you say we are bringing the everlasting peace, you get doubts because you speak of the minerals. But I think we have to go much deeper than the minerals, because when you look at the U.S. relations with Africa, in 2016, for example, in Niger, they built a third largest military drone base, of which after the military junta took power in Niger, for example, just expelled the military force. And you know, when this area of the West Africa, we are speaking of West Africa and the Central African Republic, that they are fighting, or they are much concerning with the counterterrorism and the counterintelligence. And they are invested over $100 million US. Now, looking at that, the drone itself they are using there, the military base, is not easy. It's sophisticated. We are talking of MQ-9, or we call it a Predator B. Now, these are the drones which are quite a hub of one, intelligence, but two, we are speaking of reconnaissance, we are speaking of surveillance, we are speaking of attack missions, we are speaking of target acquisition. So you may see that there's something there in between. Now, has been drawn in 2023, you come back into the relationship between Russia and Africa, China and Africa. All these are mounting questions. But above all, we look at the issue of Rwanda in the East African region. The East African region is growing to a tune of 300 million people. It's almost the population of US. So it is actually, for me, I see it as if America is looking a new partner in the Great Lakes regions. And Rwanda is, I think, being highlighted to be a serious partner over this. And therefore, the question of minerals becomes more vivid, but I think it has many faces when we speak of why U.S. brokered the peace.
Thank you very much for that very good explanation. I would like this to be heard clearly that Africa has been emphasizing on African solutions to African problems, but now we see U.S. solution. Where do we go wrong?
For me, I see it contrary. It is not a U.S. solution. I don't think if U.S. could have reached within a shortest period of time with this brokering peace, because there has been an ongoing, there has been actually, we can say, a foundation has been laid down by the African Union, East African community. So U.S. just had a soft landing. And so therefore, when we speak of African solution, African to African problems, it's true that they are building on what has been done within the East African community, the SADC region and the joint SADC East African community. They couldn't these two be brought together. But another thing of which needed to be understood philosophically, are we speaking the peace between the two nations, or we are speaking the peace of the Congo? That's another question which needed to be properly addressed. Because Rwanda, as I have said, and the Congo, they are not at war. They had a diplomatic breakout, which led to the withdrawal of the ambassador, Rwanda ambassador in Congo, and there has been a shake-up of each and the other accusing about the M23 and the likes. But when you look on the peace content, of course, they are talking of withdrawing the forces in the Congo. They are talking of ceasing fire, as if they are at war. Who is fighting who in the Congo between Rwanda and the DRC?
That's the question to
ask. It remains the question to answer, and it's a question of time.
How do you think this will change the region's dynamics, of course, taking into consideration, of course, the most affected eastern region of DRC?
Nothing will change on the dynamics unless otherwise it is being localized. The question of Rwanda actually should be coming out clearly, because Rwanda has been accused of M23. But when you go Congo, inside Congo itself, there are internal problems. There are problems of governance. There are many groups within the Codeco and etc. We have ADF from Uganda. We have the Red Tabara from Burundi. So the question is still hanging. And that's why I think those who are speaking that it's about the rich minerals of Congo they might have a point, but still nothing will change within the region unless otherwise new variables are being added into this agreement. But as it stands, two nations are still not at war.
Mr. Niagara, I've got just a question here which says, will this peace deal make it easier to access the DRC minerals, and what could this mean for the country and the region?
You see, the question of minerals, when you look from the history 1960s, U.S. has been U.S. companies has been in the Congo. Though yes, this peace deal is speaking that both nations, Rwanda and Congo, should allow the Western investors as well as the U.S. investors to invest in critical earth minerals. Now, you ask yourself, what is this? Because they have been doing business with the Congo. Though, yes, China has been the major stakeholder and investor in rare minerals, and it has been managing the global mineral supply chain, but still, companies such like the Freeport, the Manhoa, they are still in the Congo. So I think from the clause they put that they needed to allow both nations, I wonder how should Rwanda allow the investors in the Congo, unless otherwise they are taking Rwanda to be the major strategic partner in the Great Lakes regions and the East African community.
Earlier on, you mentioned on the China's dominance, and of course, how is China's growing influence in Africa and the DRC shaping the U.S. intervention within the region?
Yeah, absolutely, because when you look at the statistics of 2021, for example, about 70% of the mineral mining sector, it was just owned by the Chinese. But when you look at the projects, BRI project, the Belt and Road kind of the project in DRC by the Chinese.
Thank you very much. Mr. Niagara, I thank you very much. We are running out of time, but thank you very much for joining us tonight, and I appreciate you sharing your thoughts, comments, and replies.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. The Minister of State, Vice President's Office, Union and Environment, Hamadi Masauni, says while carbon trading is the source of income, it plays a critical role in climate change mitigation, and that is why the government puts in place short and long-term plans to ensure that Tanzania is at the forefront in Africa in addressing climate change. Masauni made the remarks in Dar es Salaam after receiving a brief report on the assessment of carbon business in the country, aligning the success with the country goal by upper middle income country by 2030, where he describes the areas that will benefit most from the trade.
Na katika maeneo ambayo tunadhani tunakwenda kufaidika zaidi, kwanza ni eneo la masoko.
One of the areas where we believe we could benefit the most is the marketing sector. In this report, I have outlined and provided recommendations on how our country can now take better advantage of carbon trading markets. This includes ensuring that we access high-quality markets with competitive prices. There are also recommendations on how to implement major changes, particularly in the use of modern technology.
Some of the recommendations made by the committee include changes in the management of carbon business and improvements to laws and regulations. The representative of the British High Commissioner to Tanzania, Felix Wood, says the government of Tanzania has embarked on major transport infrastructure program, a key step toward building a more prosperous and inclusive nation. He made the remarks during the launch of Social Welfare Service Desk introduced across different transportation hubs in Dar es Salaam, where he further congratulated the government of Tanzania for designing risk mitigations in the early phases of infrastructure improvements in the country through the Social Welfare Desk and the standard operating procedures.
Based in improved transport infrastructure, this huge program of improvement that the government of Tanzania has been embarking on is absolutely crucial to the vision of a more prosperous and inclusive Tanzania and that shared growth between our two countries. But it does come with risks. It's not just all upside. So as the transport infrastructure grows, as the economy grows, we know that there will be malign actors who will be wanting to take advantage of this, including malign actors who will target vulnerable children and other vulnerable people who also want to use the transport infrastructure. And thinking about these risks at the beginning of design is really, really important. I would like to really congratulate the government of Tanzania for being so proactive and designing in some of these risk mitigations at the start.
On the other hand, the Minister of Community Development, Gender, Women and Special Groups, Dr. Dorothy Gwajima, says between July 2024 and June 2025, the government has successfully rescued over 10,782 children from the streets and has provided them with safe shelter. Of these children, 6,108 were male and 4,674 were female.
Ndugu zangu, swala la watoto wanaoishi katika mazingira hatarishi.
My fellow citizens, the issue of children living and working on the streets remain a major challenge in our society, and both parents and the wider community must take responsibility. This is a common problem in developing countries, especially in large cities like Arusha, Dar es Salaam, Mwanza and Dodoma. I want to tell you that between July 2024 and June 2025, the government has rescued a total number of 10,782 street children, where 6,108 were boys and 4,674 were girls.
We were here to launch the Social Welfare Service Desk at Magufuli Bus Terminal, but also this represents other 14 Social Welfare Service Desks across the country. And the aim of this Social Welfare Service Desk is to support vulnerable children and other vulnerable adults who are using the transport hubs and face various challenges. So we are hoping through these social welfare services we will be able to help as children and other vulnerable people not to get themselves into various forms of abuse and other risks around the bus terminals.
The introduction of Social Welfare Service Desks is expected to play a significant role in reducing the number of street children in the country. Experts from the Ministry of Energy and its institutions have today participated in the Permanent Secretaries and Experts meeting aiming to discuss issues related to energy and water held in Harare, Zimbabwe. The meeting is part of the preparations for the joint meeting involving ministers of energy and water of the Southern African Development Community, SADC. Furthermore, the meeting has been a platform for Tanzania to deepen economic diplomacy with various countries, as well as uncovering countries' achievements in improving rural energy services through projects implemented by the Rural Energy Agency, REA. The meeting also focused on the development of the oil and gas subsector, as well as the construction of regional oil and gas infrastructure involving SADC member countries. More youth and women are now stepping up to run for leadership roles, showing a strong interest in shaping their country's future. This growing trend is inspired by greater awareness, access to information and a desire to be part of decision-making. But what's behind this shift and what should they focus on if elected? Faida has more.
Tanzania has always believed that its greatest asset and resource is not its huge mineral tourism potential or its vast arable land and waters teeming with fish or its peace and stability. The greatest assets and resources are our people. And unless the quality of our human resources is geared to the new century, unless our people have the capacity to utilize these other resources, no serious development will occur.
That was the late former president of the United Republic of Tanzania, Benjamin William Mkapa, speaking at the Harvard Kennedy School's Institute of Politics in September 1999. With conviction, he reminded the world that at the heart of Tanzania's development process are its diverse people. It was a call to recognize that sustainable progress could only come from the active inclusion of every Tanzanian, regardless of age, gender, or background.
And our philosophy is one that puts the human being at the center of development as the major actor and the major beneficiary. It is a philosophy that seeks to open up opportunities for everyone, giving everyone the capacity to exploit those opportunities, including historically disadvantaged groups, of whom women are the largest.
Today, more than 2 decades later, that vision is bearing fruit. Across the country, a new wave of leadership is rising. Women, youth, and marginalized voices are not only participating in civic life, they are vying for positions of leadership as well.
Now, it is paramount people to understand that there are some factors which are seen. We can call them somatic factors or environmental factors, desired factors. But there are those factors which are not seen. And one of the tools which can help us to understand this deeper, we can use the iceberg model. When you look at the surface value or you look at the tip of the iceberg, you may think it's just a small thing down there, up there. So you don't go deeper. But when you go deeper to the dime, to the middle part of the icy, down in the waters, you get what is not seen. Now, let me start with what is seen. When you look at the sixth government, Samia Suluhu Hassan government, it has done a lot concerning youth. It has one related with the issues of empowerment, responsibility, accountability, but creating youth to be responsible citizens. You could see from BBT and some other kind of projects.
As more women and youth vie for leadership positions in Tanzania, another crucial question becomes, what role are they expected to play once elected?
Number one, they need to be patriotic. Patriotism is an issue, but it cannot be built from being in the position of power. It should be something from within their minds and their hearts, the desire, because it's a kind of values you set by yourself. So when you're on power, you go according to the plans of the government, you go according to the policies, you follow the rules, but above all, you should exemplify who you are. What kind of message do you want to send to the generation today and the generations to come?
The rise of youth and women in Tanzania's political landscape marks a powerful shift toward a more inclusive and dynamic democracy. Their growing influence not only honors the vision of leaders like the late former President Mkapa, but also signals a hopeful future, one where every voice matters and leadership truly reflects the people it serves. Faida Ngaga, TBC News, Dar es Salaam.
In case you miss any of our stories, remember you can always go to our YouTube channel at TBC Online and watch anytime, anywhere. Before concluding the local news, let's have a look at our today's exchange rates according to the Bank of Tanzania, BOT. Don't miss TBC News every weekday to know all the latest in exchange rates. Sports News is up next. In sports news, Tanzania Squash Association General Secretary Marwa Busigala has called on stakeholders in the sport to support the sports sector financially so as to continue to create employment opportunities for young people in the country. Busigala adds that squash can always play an impressive role to promote Tanzania globally as well as creating employment opportunities, insisting what they need is a financial assistance that can help them to promote the game.
Another opportunity for these kids to meet again, to compete again, to sort of measure their benchmark, how far they've gone. And at the same time, to also test their coaches as well, if they are doing a good job. But we are grateful of their progress, and we are grateful of the support that we are getting from our sponsors, CMA, CGM, and the French Embassy. For the, we are thankful for their financial support. Without them, this would not have been possible.
I work hard. I'll come regularly on these lessons or exercises. Then when I get better, I go and play squash more. Then I go to the international level.
Youth under 14 players from Arusha and Dar es Salaam Gymkhana clubs have participated in 2 days competition at Dar es Salaam Gymkhana Club as they showcased their talents in various squash categories. And that is sports news. And now, before we conclude the news bulletin for tonight, let's take a look at our weather update for the next 24 hours.
My name is Godfrey Kazinja. I present to you 24-hour weather forecast from Tanzania Meteorological Authority. Wind flow patterns, average wind speed expected over the most part of our country, and state of the sea expected to be moderate to rough. TMA issue an advisory expecting high wave tides over the northern coast. Please take note on that. For tonight, we expect the lowest minimum temperature to be 9 degrees Celsius over Mbeya and Njombe region. For tomorrow, expect future particular conditions, thunder shower over Fiore and Sun period over Kagera and Mara, while Tanga, Unguja and Pemba Island, together with Dar es Salaam and Pwani, expect future light rain shower over Fiore and Sun period. The rest part of our country expect future particular condition and long sun period. Let's have a look for the 4 days weather forecast for some part of our country, starting from the day after tomorrow. Dar es Salaam expect future particular condition, light rain shower over few area. For Dodoma, expect future particular condition and long sun period. Together with Mbeya, the lowest minimum temperature expect to be 10 degrees Celsius. For Mwanza region, expect future particular condition and long sun period. Kilimanjaro, the lowest minimum temperature expect to be 19 degrees Celsius. Morogoro, expect future particular